Post-war Tokyo was a city struggling to breathe. The year was 1946. Japan was rebuilding from devastation. Food shortages, unemployment, and widespread poverty defined everyday life. Families were desperate. Hospitals were overwhelmed. And for many newborns, survival was uncertain before life had even begun. At the center of this fragile world stood a respected midwife named Miyuki Ishikawa. She was the director of the Katabuki Maternity Home, a place meant to protect the most vulnerable lives. Mothers arrived seeking help during childbirth, trusting Ishikawa with their infants' futures. But behind closed doors, something horrifying was unfolding. Authorities would later uncover that dozens of babies, possibly more than 80, had died under Ishikawa's supervision. And the truth was darker than anyone imagined. Ishikawa was not an unknown figure. She was educated, licensed, and viewed as a pillar of maternal care. Her maternity home served women who could not afford hospital services. Many were unmarried, impoverished, or socially marginalized. Some parents, unable to support another child, left their newborns in the facility's care. Instead of arranging adoptions or long-term support, investigators later alleged that Ishikawa allowed many infants to die through deliberate neglect. Her reasoning, according to testimony, was chilling. She reportedly believed these children were already doomed, born into poverty with parents unable to care for them. To her, preventing prolonged suffering seemed like a grim practicality. But practicality is not mercy, and neglect is not compassion. For months, the deaths went largely unnoticed. Infant mortality in post-war Japan was tragically common. Overcrowded facilities and limited medical resources masked what was happening inside the maternity home. The truth began to surface when suspicious patterns emerged. Funeral workers noticed an unusual number of infant remains linked to the same facility. Records were incomplete. Documentation was missing. Questions multiplied. Eventually, police launched an investigation. What they uncovered stunned the nation. Bodies were traced back to Ishikawa's maternity home in alarming numbers. Witnesses described infants left without sufficient food or medical attention. Some staff members allegedly cooperated, either out of fear, indifference, or shared belief in Ishikawa's rationale. The maternity home, once seen as a sanctuary, became the center of a criminal inquiry. When arrested, Ishikawa did not present herself as a monster. Instead, she framed her actions as a response to systemic failure. She claimed that parents had effectively abandoned their children, leaving her with impossible choices. With no funding, no adoption infrastructure, and no social support, she insisted she was forced into decisions meant to reduce suffering. The court and the public wrestled with the moral weight of her defense. Was this calculated cruelty, or a distorted attempt at mercy born from desperation? For grieving families, the answer was simple. Their children were denied a chance to live. The trial attracted national attention. Prosecutors argued that Ishikawa had a duty of care, a legal and ethical obligation she violated repeatedly. Evidence suggested that neglect was not isolated but systemic. Two accomplices, including her husband and a physician connected to the facility, were implicated in falsifying records and facilitating the concealment of deaths. Defense attorneys emphasized the harsh social realities of the time. They argued that responsibility extended beyond one woman to a broken system, incapable of protecting vulnerable children. The courtroom became a battleground between accountability and context. In the end, the sentences shocked many observers. Despite the scale of deaths, punishments were relatively light compared to public expectations. Legal ambiguity surrounding infant abandonment and post-war hardship influenced the court's decision. To critics, justice felt incomplete. To others, the case exposed a grim truth. When institutions fail, tragedy multiplies. The Miyuki Ishikawa case forced Japan to confront uncomfortable realities about poverty, childcare, and legal responsibility. It revealed how vulnerable populations can slip through cracks when systems collapse, and how rationalization can blur moral boundaries. Most importantly, it highlighted the fragile trust placed in caregivers. A maternity home should symbolize protection. In this case, it became a symbol of neglect. Today, the story remains one of history's most unsettling ethical tragedies. It is not simply about crime. It is about desperation, flawed reasoning, and the consequences of unchecked authority during times of social crisis. The infants lost in this case never had voices, but history remembers them, and their silence continues to echo as a warning. Compassion without accountability can become something far darker.